What is going to work for Buhari now? People, I mean, this is the fourth time he's running. It's almost as if you've done it 3 times, you failed. Why come back? What is different this time?
Well, I think before I go to what is different, one thing that is constant about Buhari is the effect of his personality. A Buhari candidacy ensures quite a number of millions of votes. What has changed between now or between past attempts and now is that the opposition now has a more united front. Buhari is now contesting under the umbrella of a more national party, and I mean, there's been no better chance than now.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But let's look things that are more specific, and especially things that have come up in the last week. This issue about his certificates or no certificates seems to be becoming a problem, sort of, if I use that word, for General Buhari's credibility, in quotes. People have said that he said that his certificate was with the army has denied that, or his original certificate. So what is that story about, and how much of a problem is it going to be eventually for him?
Well, I wouldn't say I know very much about where the general certificate is, but one thing that I can say is that for somebody to rise through the ranks of the military, rise so high in the ranks of the military, he can't not have these certificates. Yeah. He can't be not qualified.
Yeah, but the allegation is not that he doesn't have the qualification. It's more about what he said, about where they are. So it's people are beginning to ask, okay, he says he's very credible. It's one of his biggest strengths, his credibility, his integrity. So do you think that brings into question that particular part of his characteristic?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, the particular location of the certificates does not mean that his candidature is not credible.
Let's look at security now. It's probably going to be the biggest factor, I want to believe, going into the elections. People have said, the one candidate said this, one candidate is not doing that. Do you think that's going to be the deciding factor, or is it going to be corruption, or is it going to be the economy, or is it going to be all of these things?
I think security is a big factor. It's most certainly one of the biggest factors, because even the Constitution says that the primary role of government is to protect the lives and properties of citizens. And if I were to score this present government on security, I would give this present government an abysmal failure. So I think that security is definitely one of the deciding factors. But another thing is corruption has been very institutionalized by the current government. And I think that Buhari has the capacity to change that. And if people have faith in the fact that he can change that, that can swing quite a lot.
So how does he do that? Because one other thing, like when I talked about, him leaving things too late, we haven't necessarily heard what his plan is for security. What does he need to be saying at this point?
Well, I think part of it is the confidence that he has in himself, and also that a lot of Nigerians have in him as a general. He has said about how the Mesanin terrorists were wiped out during his time, I think as GOC. Yes. I think that with his military training, it comes with the territory. One can expect that he'll be able to manage the security challenges that we currently have in the country.
Do you think there was a statement he made about him going into office, and once he goes in, Boko Haram will be quiet as far as it's concerned. People have misinterpreted it in a lot of ways. Is this something that people should actually believe?
I think so. I think people should at least have faith. So not faith from the religious point of view now, more like confidence in his ability to deliver, especially because we have a government which has been in power for 6 years, and we have not seen any improvements in the security of lives and property. In fact, it has gotten so much worse.
Let's look at the polls now. I've seen a lot of maps on social media about how the voting pattern is going to be. There's a certain map that says the whole of the North and the Southwest will go to APC, and then the other 2 regions will go to the PDP. Then there's also other maps that says the Southwest, the Southeast, and the North Central are all PDP blocks. And the other 3 regions are going to be split, mostly half and half, which gives PDP the victory. How do you think it's going to play out eventually?
You forgot the 4th map, which is the map of the Nigeria without the states and communities and local governments that have been taken over by terrorists. And we earnestly fear that. But to your question, I think that It will be difficult to, it's difficult to predict these things, but areas that have suffered the real everyday effect of Boko Haram, I honestly don't see them voting President Jonathan again in office. And I see this without personal prejudice, but just with every sense of responsibility. I think the Southwest is within reasonable grip of the opposition. And so it's also possible for the Southwest to be a block, as it were, for President Buhari, or for General Buhari.
You're already anticipating him going there. But you mentioned something that is actually very key, and it's something that I've asked on this show in the last couple of weeks when we've been on air. Do you think there's going to be elections in those 3 states in the Northeast? Talking about Borno State, Yobe, and Adamawa. Do you think there are going to be elections in those states?
To be honest, I can't tell. I can't tell. It is the right of the citizens to be able to vote, especially if they have their voters' cards. But even in the states that are not affected by all this terrorism, there's still so many people who don't have voters' cards, including myself. I have a temporary voters' card.
Including myself. I don't have my PVC yet.
Exactly. So we have until the 13th of January to pick up PVCs. And they have not even been, I don't know whether they've been produced. They certainly have not been distributed. I have had to go to and from my state where I'm going to vote, where I'm supposed to be voting, to try and get my PVC, and I have not been successful.
So are you worried about the elections?
I am earnestly very worried.
Worried that it won't hold, or worried that the results...
No, the election will hold. It must hold. But I am worried that
outcome.
A lot of people will be disenfranchised, and it will be in places where the opposition is at an advantage.
Interesting.
I mean, if Governor Fashola and his family could not get their PVCs, then, I mean,
I don't know about you being the opposition, but I definitely agree with you with the fact that the INEC has done a terrible job with the PVCs. I have to say this myself. I've been to the INEC office, I think, 4 times now, and I still don't have my PVC. I've been told to come back tomorrow. So I'll go again tomorrow to find out. I know a lot of Nigerians have this story. So it's actually a little worrying to see this trend, and it makes you wonder what's going to happen going forward. So we're talking about the elections now and people accepting the results. You think that's going to play into whoever loses on the day, saying, okay, so and so was disenfranchised, so we're not going to accept the results. And what does that say for the nation eventually?
Well, what I would say is, as law-abiding citizens, and I must say that I think that both President Jonathan and General Buhari are law-abiding citizens. Whichever of them loses will do the right thing if they feel aggrieved, and that is to put Nigeria first and approach the courts.
All right, Kayode, thank you very much. I'm sure you'll be back again before the elections in February.
Thank you for having me.
I think we're going to be talking politics all through until the 14th of February. So we need to probably get you back and see how things shape up.
I'll be looking forward to coming again.
Battle it out.
I will be very happy to.
Much, Kayode,
thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Good luck in your future endeavors. We'll be right back with more right here on Rubbin Minds. Please stay with us.